Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to tackle a hard problem on LeetCode. Count subarrays with majority element 2. This problem is all about finding the number of subarrays in a given array where a target element is the majority element. I'm excited to share my approach with you. So let's get started. The problem statement is to count the number of subarrays where the target element appears more than half of the times. We're given an array of integers and a target element, and we need to return the count of subarrays where the target element is the majority element. This problem requires us to think carefully about how we can generate all possible subarrays and then check each one to see if the target element is the majority element. Now, let's talk about the core insight behind this problem. Think of it like a voting system, where each element in the subarray gets a vote. If the target element gets more than half of the votes, it's the majority element. We can use this intuition to guide our approach. We'll generate all possible subarrays and then check each one to see if the target element has more than half of the votes. To solve this problem, we'll use a simple yet effective approach. We'll start by initializing a variable to keep track of the count of subarrays where the target element is the majority element. Then, we'll use two nested loops to generate all possible subarrays. For each subarray, we'll keep track of the frequency of the target element and check if it's the majority element by comparing its frequency to half of the length of the subarray. If it is, we'll increment our count. Now, let's take a look at the code. We start by defining a class and a function called countMajoritySubarrays. We initialize a variable count to 0, which will keep track of the number of subarrays where the target element is the majority element. Then, we have a nested loop structure, where the outer loop iterates over the array and the inner loop generates all possible subarrays, starting from the current index. Inside the inner loop, we check if the current element is equal to the target element. And if so, we increment a variable freq, which keeps track of the frequency of the target element. We then check if 2 times the frequency of the target element is greater than the length of the subarray, which means the target element is the majority element. If this condition is true, we increment our count. Finally, we return the count. Now, let's talk about the time and space complexity of this solution. The time complexity is O(n squared), because we're using two nested loops to generate all possible subarrays. The space complexity is O(1), because we're only using a constant amount of space to store our variables. And that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this explanation of the count subarrays with majority element 2 problem. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and comment your approach below.